Education in Australia is constantly evolving. The context that we teach in and directions that we strive towards are ever developing, and how to best reach the student's intended outcome is frequently changing. A question you will often hear is, what is a teacher? Well, the definition of a teacher is a person who teaches or instructs, especially as a profession. Pretty broad, right? If you go by this definition, you could class almost anyone as a teacher. How about my Uncle Bob? When I was little, I remember he used to instruct me to pick my nose, just to annoy my mum. Does this make him a teacher? What is more important to look at is the definition of a successful teacher. But what is it that allows a teacher to succeed? What used to be considered a successful education would now be frowned upon. In the past 50 years alone, education in Australia has undergone a massive transformation. Let me take you back to 1963. The Liberal Party was in power and Robert Menzies was our Prime Minister. Government funding for secondary schools had just increased from £165 million to £469 million. And in a bid to win the November election for the first time ever, Menzies introduced funding to non-government schools. At this time, classes were taught in the traditional way and favoured classical conditioning. A teacher would stand at the front of the room and lecture while the students took notes. Classrooms could exceed 50 students. Punishments were corporal, teachers used chalk on a blackboard, and student subject selection was minimal. Students who wanted to pursue a trade would have to drop out at year 10. In the 1970s, pressure began to build for corporal punishment to be abolished. The Teachers' Federation announced an in-principle opposition to the form of punishment, and in 1983, Victoria became the first state in Australia to abolish it. New South Wales, Western Australia and South Australia all followed suit in 1987, and by 1988 the ACT were on board as well. The development of technology has also had a major impact on schools. In the 1980s, schools began to introduce their very first computers, and it didn't take long for them to become a vital part of education. By 2000, whiteboards had begun to replace the old blackboards, and by 2007, interactive whiteboards had been introduced. Educational theories continued to be developed, and what was once considered to be the most effective way of teaching became outdated. Today, it is all about social and student-centred learning. Punishment in classrooms has transformed into warnings, detentions, and suspensions, with a number of schools abolishing punishment altogether. Students' interactions with computers is forever increasing. Schools have begun to introduce laptops and tablet programs to various year levels in an attempt to embrace technology as an important resource. Classroom sizes have more than halved to an average size of 21.6 students, and are now being given more choices than ever before, with a staggering 144 different BCE subjects being offered in Victoria, as well as an industrial option of VCAL and VET. So once again, this leads me to ask, what is a successful teacher? A successful teacher is one who is constantly striving to improve their styles and adapt according to the global and social influences. And what is the result? Happier and better educated students.
Sun's coming up in the sky. I'm watching the birds passing on by. It makes me wanna cry. It makes me wanna cry. Up on the ground, watching the clouds running around. It makes me feel so high. It makes me feel.
Education will never be perfected because the world is so rapidly changing. So what will come next? How will our children be educated? And what about their children? It is easy to predict that the role technology will play in schools will continue to increase. Could workbooks be replaced by computers altogether? How many lessons will be delivered online? What about the use of phones? Students have voice recorders, cameras, video cameras and internet access at their disposal, and there is only so long until teachers begin to use them as a resource. And what about punishment? Today, the idea of hitting a student with a ruler in order to inflict pain seems barbaric to me, but 50 years ago it was widely accepted. Today, detentions and suspensions are commonly used, but what will happen if a new study comes out proving that these punishments are harmful to students? As long as studies continue, theories are developed, and society continues to evolve, then education needs to adapt in order to remain applicable. Schools strive to deliver the most relevant content in the most effective way, and in order to do this, they can never stop evolving.